It was my first movie ever, and your faith in me.
Gal Gadot isn't the type to start drama. She doesn't do exposés, shade people online, or chase headlines. Her presence in Hollywood has always been defined by strength tempered with grace, a quiet power that commands attention without ever raising her voice. So when Gal sat down for a reflective interview on leadership, loyalty, and collaboration in the industry, no one expected her to break her silence about one of Hollywood's most carefully managed reputations. But that's exactly what happened. She didn't name Blake Lively directly. She didn't have to. With deliberate pauses, piercing clarity, and one chilling sentence, sometimes women who speak about lifting others are only building platforms for themselves. Gal unmasked a betrayal that had haunted her for years. And just like that, Blake Lively's illusion of sisterhood began to fracture, not through scandal, but through quiet, devastating truth.
Back, we're hanging out with Gal Gadot now! Gal!
It began with a collaboration, a global fashion campaign designed to celebrate women in power. Gal Gadot and Blake Lively were pitched as the perfect pair, stylish, articulate, iconic in their own lanes. The brand called it elegance east to west, a vision of unity, global representation, and modern womanhood. To Gal, the idea felt right. She was eager to show a different side of herself, not Wonder Woman, but the woman behind the warrior. Blake was friendly, enthusiastic, deeply involved. She joked on set, called Gal sister, and posed beside her in every behind-the-scenes shot. Gal believed it was genuine. They shared stories, spoke on panels, and publicly supported one another, or so Gal thought. What she didn't realize was that the bond she thought she was building was being used. Behind the smiles and speeches, Gal was being reduced to a stepping stone in Blake Lively's ongoing campaign to control every frame, every headline, every narrative. What looked like mutual empowerment on camera was, in truth, anything but. The campaign had been pitched as a shared spotlight, two stories, two faces, equal focus. But early into production, things started to shift. Gal noticed that promo video scripts were quietly revised, always in ways that subtly elevated Blake's role. Their scenes were scheduled together, but Blake's solo segments got more time. The makeup team spent hours perfecting Blake's look, while Gal was rushed through styling with phrases like, "Natural is best on you." When Gal gently brought it up, she was reassured that the edits were for pacing and cohesion, and that everything was being handled with respect. She believed them, until the official trailer dropped. Gal appeared for less than 4 seconds. Blake, on the other hand, narrated the entire thing. That was when Gal realized this wasn't a collaboration at all. It was a Blake Lively brand moment, and she had unknowingly signed on as a supporting act in someone else's carefully curated performance. The signs became impossible to ignore. Gal's confirmed quotes for the press kit were suddenly removed without explanation. When she asked her team, they said the brand had decided to take a more singular direction. Her comments were deemed too global, too abstract, not emotionally relatable enough. But the truth was simpler. Blake didn't want to share the mic even during the campaign rollout. Joint interviews were quietly canceled. Requests to feature both women together were redirected to Blake's team. Gal was thanked, praised, and then neatly pushed off the page. It wasn't confrontational, it was cold. She had been minimized, repositioned from co-star to co-sign, and by the time the brand's final billboard dropped, Gal was nowhere to be found.
Like this. Put it more like this, exactly.
That's quite nice, though.
What Gal didn't see at the time, but what insiders later confirmed, was just how active Blake's team had been in reshaping the campaign. Leaked emails from internal marketing meetings revealed that Blake's reps had raised repeated concerns about narrative clarity, suggesting that Gal's accent, international identity, and powerful direct speaking style might confuse the brand's messaging. A source close to the campaign said Blake personally requested all copy be rewritten to center on one voice, hers. Another insider claimed Blake's team worried Gal's global popularity might overshadow Blake's intended role as the emotional anchor of the campaign. It was never about collaboration. It was about control. Every decision, every silent removal, every redirection served one purpose: to ensure Blake stood alone.
I never really wanted to talk about politics. I kind of tried really, really hard to avoid it.
Gal never lashed out. She didn't call names. But in that now infamous interview, she chose truth over politeness. When asked what she had learned about female collaboration in Hollywood, she paused, looked down for a moment, and said, "I've learned that not everyone who speaks the language of sisterhood is acting in good faith. Some people talk about empowering others when really they're just building taller pedestals for themselves. Sometimes betrayals don't scream, they whisper." The interviewer didn't press. They didn't have to. The silence that followed said everything. Gal didn't need to name her. The people watching already knew.
Middle child was a bit disappointed that I wasn't Snow White.
The clip exploded across social media, and behind the scenes, it lit a fire under people who had stayed silent for years. A former stylist who had worked with Blake posted a cryptic message: "It's always the one who preaches unity." A magazine editor liked a tweet comparing Gal's quiet strength to Blake's performative charm. A brand reposted Gal's interview with the caption, "This. All of this." But what mattered more was the whisper network becoming a chorus. Women who had worked with Blake on campaigns, films, and press events began sharing similar stories, being subtly sidelined, having their voices softened, watching themselves fade out of shots they were promised would feature them equally. No lawsuits, no scandals, just quiet erasure, over and over again. And finally, someone Gal had spoken out.
Baby at home, and you have a baby on the way. Congratulations.
What makes you say that?
The shark told me.
Food is probably the most central part of my life, food and family, but those are complete.
Blake's team responded the only way they knew how, with charm. Legacy content flooded timelines. Old interviews about marriage and motherhood resurfaced. Posts of her baking for crew members went viral again. Carefully curated nostalgia. But the timing was too obvious, and the world was paying attention. People began revisiting old content with new eyes. That empowering campaign Blake once led now looked like an act of quiet erasure. Her uplifting quotes were questioned. Her carefully constructed image started to crack. Brands abroad began pulling back. A luxury campaign in Paris delayed its release. A Middle Eastern sponsorship quietly dropped Blake from promotional materials. PR firms overseas started advising clients to avoid proximity, because when someone like Gal Gadot speaks softly but with conviction, the world listens.
Again, I pray that isn't true. There's a wonderful.
Gal didn't scream. She didn't accuse. She didn't fight dirty. She simply told the truth, and that truth cut deeper than any scandal ever could. Blake Lively had spent years crafting an image of polished empowerment, the woman who smiled at press junkets and spoke about lifting others up. But underneath, Gal revealed something all too familiar to many women in the industry: the polished performer who preaches unity while making sure they never have to share the spotlight. Now, those quiet betrayals aren't buried in silence anymore. They're part of the conversation. And Gal? She didn't just unmask a false narrative. She reminded everyone that grace, when paired with truth, is the most powerful weapon of all.